Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll talk about what happened in Louisiana in 2008. Cy Alexander came home after his night shift and found his wife, 24-year-old Krista, on the floor, unresponsive. When the police got to the scene, it looked like a robbery gone wrong. But as they investigated, they realized the crime was much darker than they first thought. Krista Ann Baker was born on November 27, 1983, in Laurel, Mississippi, to Pastor Winfred Baker and Patty Ann Baker. She was the youngest of 3 siblings, with 2 older brothers. In 1991, the family moved to Abita Springs, Louisiana, where they built their church. Krista got involved in church activities early on and took part in many trips with Christian missionary groups, focusing on helping others, especially children. Krista was excited about starting her own family. She was homeschooled and earned a degree in Christian education online from the North Tennessee Bible Institute. She loved helping people and working with children, and she dreamed of getting married someday. However, she prioritized her faith and traditional values, choosing to remain celibate and only date for marriage. Despite this, she built strong friendships, including one with Cy Alexander, a charismatic and popular youth pastor. They went on several missionary trips together, and their families became friends through the church. After many years of being friends, Cy asked Winfred Baker for permission to marry Krista, and her father happily agreed. During their courtship, Cy and Krista followed church traditions and did not engage in any physical intimacy. Krista told her parents she wanted to have her first kiss with Cy at the altar. While she was helping her parents at church, Cy was studying to become a paramedic. A year later, they decided to get married and exchanged vows on March 1, 2008, in front of family and church members. They were thrilled. Krista was a beautiful bride, and it was a day she had long awaited. Sadly, just 4 months after their wedding, she was found dead. At around 6 a.m. on June 29, 2008, Cy came home from his night shift and discovered Krista lying face down on the floor. She was already dead when he found her, and he quickly called the police. Krista's body was positioned near the front door, and there were no signs of a struggle. A bullet hole was found in the back of her head, and experts believe the shot was fired from very close range, as there were burn marks on her skin. The police also found a 9mm shell casing on the floor next to her body. Investigators think the incident might have been a robbery that went wrong. They believe someone broke into the house, thinking it was empty, and decided to eliminate Krista as a witness. While checking the rooms, they found signs of a search, like a jewelry box on the bed and a broken gun cabinet. Krista's purse was on the kitchen table, and it appeared the intruder was rummaging through it. Many drawers and cabinets were open, suggesting the intruder was looking for something valuable. When the police finished searching the house, they needed to interview everyone with access to it, and the first person they talked to was Krista's husband, Cy Alexander. He was upset and crying, so the investigators had to wait for him to calm down and be able to answer their questions. Cy told investigators that everything was fine the night before he went to work. He had overnight shifts as an EMT with a Cadena ambulance. He called Krista several times during the night, but she wasn't answering her phone. He sent her several text messages, but Krista didn't respond to those messages either. He thought she was tired and had fallen asleep. However, when he returned home in the morning, he immediately noticed that the front door to their house was slightly ajar. Going inside, he saw scattered items and Krista lying on the floor with a gunshot wound to the head. He checked her pulse and realized that she was dead. After this, he immediately called 911. Investigators were trying to figure out who might have come to the house while Cy was at work. Perhaps the perpetrator waited until Krista was alone. They also wanted to find out if Krista could have let the criminal into the house herself. The absence of signs of a struggle in the house and on her body could indicate that she knew the person who took her life. Perhaps she did not feel the danger and thus did not have time to resist. Cy told investigators that a rifle and a shotgun were missing from the gun cabinet. He also said that Krista was not the only victim of this crime. She was 17 weeks pregnant. Therefore, he lost not only his wife but also their unborn child. He was devastated and had no idea how to live his life now. There were 2 victims in the case instead of 1. The crime scene seemed strange to the investigators. The mess in the house didn't make any sense. The cabinets and drawers were open, but at the same time, there was no sign that anyone had been rummaging through them. It didn't look like anyone was searching for anything in them. Perhaps by doing so, the person who took Krista's life wanted to confuse the police. The same applied to the jewelry box. It was open, but the jewelry itself was not missing, which was very suspicious. Krista's purse was open, but all the valuables were still there. Sai said 2 weapons were missing from the house, which also seemed strange. After all, they had more weapons in the house, but the criminal took only 2 of them for some reason. Investigators started wondering why he didn't take all of them. Considering all of the above, the investigators concluded that they were dealing with a staged crime scene. It looked like whoever did this intended to take the life of Krista Alexander but decided to stage it as a robbery. The police started interviewing the couple's neighbors in search of potential witnesses. As a result, they got an unexpected lead. Mavis Rabel, 69, the Alexanders' next-door neighbor and landlord, described the couple as quiet newlyweds who married in March and were active members of the Fundamental Baptist Church. Rabel described Krista Alexander as a sweet, kind, helpful woman who rarely went into the yard outside her tan-brick house without her husband. "It's just unbelievable that somebody would want to harm her. You just don't expect something like this out here," Rabel said. Rabel added that she last saw the couple Saturday afternoon when Sai Alexander was collecting the bodies of the turtles he had shot the previous weekend in his backyard pond. Thus, investigators learned from a neighbor that Sai had a gun. However, no gun was found in the home of Sai and Krista. Plus, Sai said that the only weapons stolen from the house were a rifle and a shotgun. He never mentioned a gun. Now, the detectives wanted to learn what Sai was hiding. They went to the pond area, examined everything, and found several 9mm shell casings in the grass. They looked the same as the one found next to Krista's body. The police sent all the casings to the state crime lab for comparison. The report left no doubt that the gun used by Sai to shoot at the turtles was the same gun used to shoot Krista. Investigators called Sai to the police station for further questioning. He claimed that there was no way he could have shot his wife. He said he left for work at about 5 p.m. On Saturday, June 28, 2008, Sai returned home at about 6 a.m. the next day. His alibi was that he was on duty all night. Investigators talked to his colleagues, and they confirmed Sai's alibi. He spent the whole night at work. When asked about the gun, Sai said he did have a gun but sold it a day before the incident. According to him, a stranger named Steve bought the gun from him for $500. Steve paid in cash, so it was hard to verify this story. Sai described Steve as a white male, about 35 years old, approximately 6 feet 1 inch tall, driving an old pickup truck, presumably a Toyota. Investigators talked to Krista's parents, and they said they didn't believe Sai's story. According to Winfred Baker, Krista's father, her death did not seem to emotionally impact Sai. Moreover, her father believed Sai's indifference began a few months before the wedding. After Krista and Sai started to live together, they experienced financial difficulties, and the child they were expecting could also affect their financial situation. Krista's parents also told investigators that they suspected Sai was cheating on his wife. A few weeks before her death, Krista told friends that she suspected Sai was in a relationship with another woman. This woman was his colleague and was even among the guests at their wedding. The more investigators learned about the marriage of Krista and Sai Alexander, the more they became convinced that they had different plans for the future. But was this a strong enough motive to take the life of the mother of his unborn child? The only lead the police had was a man named Steve, to whom Sai claimed he had sold the gun used to shoot Krista. The police started looking for this man, and the description given by Sai was supposed to help in this. At the same time, the investigators questioned Sai again, asking him to tell them in more detail what he did before going to work, while on duty, and after he returned home. This time, his story was different from what he had said earlier. He talked about how he spent the day before going to work but never mentioned a man named Steve, who was allegedly at his house and to whom he sold a gun. It also seemed strange to the investigators that while on duty, Sai did not worry about Krista's well-being after she did not answer his calls. He knew that she was pregnant and home alone. He could have asked one of the family members to check on her, but he didn't. The fact that someone had staged the crime scene was also not in Sai's favor. Realizing that Sai couldn't keep his story straight, the investigators started pressuring him to get the truth out of him. In the end, after several hours of interrogation, he told a completely different story, but was he telling the truth now? He claimed that he slept before going to work. Alexander said he had gone to sleep on the couch, and his wife was late waking him up for his ambulance night shift. "I was in a rush, I wasn't mad at her for waking me up late. It definitely wasn't an issue," Alexander said. He walked around the house holding a gun in his hand because he was going to take it with him to work. One of his colleagues wanted to see it and maybe buy it. He walked around with a gun, aiming at various objects and repeating, "Click, click," fooling around. He approached Krista from behind, put the gun to the back of her head, and at that moment, an accidental shot occurred. He claimed it was an accident, saying he didn't want to do it. When he realized that Krista was dead, he was scared and did not know what to do. He admitted that he decided to stage a crime scene to make it look like a robbery. Sai took several items from the house, including weapons and a DVD player, and drove to work. He left the front door open, hoping someone would see the open door and the lights on and call the police. He wanted someone to find Krista while he was at work, but his plan failed. On his way to work, Alexander said he threw the pistol and other items, such as his wife's jewelry, out the passenger side window. When he arrived at work, all he had left in the car was the DVD player and a Sony radio. He handed the DVD player to a female colleague named Allison Sharp. He also confirmed that he had an affair with this woman. Investigators questioned Allison Sharp, and she told them that her relationship with Sai Alexander involved kissing and holding hands before and after his wedding. Sharp said she and Sai once spent the night together in a Baton Rouge hotel. Sharp said she was stressed, and Sai took her to the Callaway Inn to help her. Alexander paid for a suite with a jacuzzi, brought china plates from his home, and served a meal with wine. At that time, Krista was at church camp, and Sai believed she would not find out anything about his unfaithfulness. He claimed to have financial problems, stating that he made $11 an hour and was having trouble passing a test that would have allowed him to earn more. Their washing machine was broken, Krista was not covered by health insurance, and she was unemployed. They lived in a rental home. Despite their financial difficulties, Alexander managed to find the money to pay for the night with Sharp at the Callaway Inn. Sharp claimed she had no idea that Sai had taken his wife's life. Detectives established that she had nothing to do with the crime and released her without any charges. Although Sai Alexander admitted that Krista died as a result of his actions, investigators did not believe her death was an accident. It seemed rather strange that he was walking around the house with a gun, aiming at various objects. Even more bizarre was that he put the gun to the back of his pregnant wife's head. The next step for the police was to find the weapon used in the crime, and they found the gun in the bushes by the road, exactly where Sai said he threw it away. The ballistics examination confirmed that this gun was indeed the weapon of the crime. They charged Sai with second-degree life deprivation of his wife, first-degree feticide for the death of their unborn child, and obstruction of justice for allegedly staging a crime scene to make it appear as though there had been a burglary. Investigators believed that Sai had deliberately committed a crime to live with his mistress. He wanted to end his marriage, but Krista was pregnant. He did not want to become a parent and, therefore, decided without thinking about the consequences to get rid of his wife and the child they were expecting. After the police arrested Cy Alexander, Krista's parents found the strength to forgive him. The Baker family gathered to mourn after losing their baby girl and what would have been their fourth grandchild. "She was a doll, I suppose you would say," said her father, Winford Baker. Krista's friends and relatives, both close and distant, will remember her as a person who shared her life and a message. She had already gone on a total of 17 mission trips, her father said. Winford Baker mentioned that he spoke with Cy shortly before his arrest, describing their meeting. "We talked with him briefly right before he went back for another interview. It really wasn't much of a conversation. We hugged and cried together," Baker said. Even though he wanted justice, he had already forgiven Cy. Baker said, "We forgave him even before we found out who it was. The only thing that gave me comfort was knowing that Krista is now in a better place. She's with the Lord, she's in heaven." The trial started on August 2, 2009. Prosecutors said that Cy Alexander's behavior after he shot his pregnant wife showed that he acted on purpose. They asked, if it was an accident, why didn't he call 911 right away? Instead, he faked a robbery and left Krista's body for 12 hours before coming back from work and finally calling for help. They also doubted his story that the shooting was accidental. Cy had many guns, and witnesses said he knew how to use them because his father taught him. Defense attorney Louis Angelby said, "My client is deeply saddened by what happened and realizes he made serious mistakes. He has never denied being involved in the death of his beloved wife and acknowledges that he made some poor choices." Cy Alexander, 24, who was accused of depriving his wife of life in the second degree, suddenly stopped the jury from deliberating by pleading guilty. Prosecutors stated that the change happened and the victim's family accepted a plea deal that had been proposed for some time. In August 2009, Cy Alexander was sentenced to 55 years in prison.